Is World War III knocking at multiple doors? And is US going to open the door? What are the consequences and why the world has become the most dangerous place ever? World wars have never begun with a single gunshot. They have begun when multiple conflicts start reinforcing each other. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to do a deep dive into understanding that how World War III seems right on the edge in this very year of 2026. Why is it at this particular place and why US seems like the starting point of this very world war that we are talking about. So let us begin with talking about this very year that has just begun and how it has come to be a year of peak of geopolitics. So when we talk about 2026 itself, we have seen that multiple conflicts, be it the protests that are rising up in Iran, the involvement of Israel around it, Russia-Ukraine war continuing on, and then capture of Venezuelan president by US, and many more such things that are unfolding. And these multiple conflicts that are coming all together simultaneously, all they are doing are creating an escalation overlap where we don't know when the situation might go out of hand. And when we talk about this very situation at our hand, we get to see that it has led to all the collapse of all the assumptions, especially we had after the Cold War era, that there will be peace dividends, globalization will be a stabilizing factor, and there will be presence of a norm enforcer. So what came as a result and a learning after two world wars and a Cold War era, that is being shattered as the moment we are speaking. And all we are getting to see that we are moving from a rule-based international order to something that is power oriented, not about norms, not about global peace at all. And as of now, all the states seem to be prioritizing their own interests, seem to be prioritizing the security, the strategic depth, and most importantly, the military deterrence. So if you want to understand more about this, I've already covered this in a video. You can go and watch that. Now we will be moving towards understanding that why we are saying that World War III is knocking around and it is knocking on multiple doors. So when we talk about this very situation, it has a very simple starting point, and that starting point as of now seems Greenland. When we are talking about Greenland, Greenland has an advantage not just because of the geography where it is located, but when we are coupling it with climate change. Because of the climate change, the rising temperatures, we are seeing that the Arctic ice is melting and it is going to create new sea lanes, especially around Greenland. Other than that, Greenland would serve as a great access for missile warning systems, control over not just North Atlantic but Arctic jurisdiction as well, and it will give a whole surveillance to especially the Russian Arctic fleet. And guess who will be in the most advantageous position to have all of this? It would be US. And that's why US is not shying away from a military action as well, which has been stated by their own president. Even if it means death of NATO, because Denmark, which is the controller of this particular location, has already stated that we will return back, and this is against the principles of NATO and this is going to be very destructive. So when we are talking about the situation that we get to see in front of us in terms of Greenland, it is not just about security, it is about the access to new routes, it is about the military deterrence, it is about the accessibility, it is about resources that can come along, be it the rare earth minerals or be it the energy and mineral extraction potential. However, US is using the simple argument that if we control the territory, we will provide the security. And if this is their motto, they will not be looking into any sort of consent. Now, this shows us a key strategic shift. What is the key strategic shift? That there is a movement away from any sort of sovereignty realms and countries which have the power, they are ready to override these norms if they get advantages around it. The strategic geography, a very good example, right, before Greenland serves the very same purpose is Venezuela. Venezuelan president's capture and what is happening in Venezuela is not about democracy, it is about resources. And the problem with both of these incidents is that this opens the gate. Not just a random gate, but a floodgate which marks the incoming of World War III. Because this is going to be like a Pandora box. This one precedent which is going to be set by US is going to open up all the chaos across the globe where there is restraint because of norm, be it China, Taiwan, be it Russia, Ukraine, and every other dimension that we are talking about. So when we are talking about this particular incident escalating, that means the situation around Greenland escalating, situation around Colombia escalating, this will send in a signal. And we have known for the longest time that the international system works on behavioral signal. If a norm setter, if such a huge economy, once a leading power, they are ready to use any sort of coercion, they are normalizing that we can acquisite and sit upon the territory, then others will not be feared of imitating the same method. And the security justification that US is using across the world, be it in the recent situation for Colombia, Venezuela and Greenland, and earlier be it for Iraq, Afghanistan and whatnot, we get to see this security justification when it is right in front of us. It will become a universal loophole which other powers, be it Russia and China, they will also be ready to use this to their own advantage. All the legal frameworks that are present in front of us, they will lose any value they have. Just like WTO has lost its value, has lost its place because US is not respecting any trade norm. If the trade norm is not respected by one country, why it will be respected by other country? And that is how global frameworks go back to the bin. And the biggest sufferer that comes out of this whole chaotic situation where there is no rule-based framework working out is the smaller state, because they are the ones which need the protection of the norms, not the bigger state, not the developed countries. It is the developing nations, the least developed countries, which are dependent on these norms to climb the ladders gradually. So what will happen as soon as the Greenland situation escalate? We will see there will be a movement from a rule-based order to a mimicry and copying of this competitive evaluation. All we get to start from the Greenland conflict, and then every other conflict, be it Iran, be it Ukraine, Russia, be it China, Taiwan, Myanmar issue, all this, Thailand, Cambodia, all of this will rise up, multiply, go into sections, and it would be nothing short of a world war which is happening by 1,000 cuts. This would not be about two major parties on one end or the other. It would be multiple entities fighting, escalating the conflict, and external powers, the bigger powers, trying to make up their own place in this situation. And how will all of it start? As I said, it will start with England, because Russia has already gone ahead and challenged the territorial norms of Ukraine back in 2022. If Greenland precedent actually sets in, Russia will also use the very same argument. Borders will be negotiable because they are threat perception, and Western credibility to criticize Russia for anything or at all goes away. It also takes away the security that US provides in any form, be it funding, because they are not consistent with it. A great example here, how US has withdrawn from 66 international organizations, including International Solar Alliance. It's not just that. If you talk about Israel here, Israel's selective sovereignty claims, they will also have a validation. They will focus on security, they will say borders don't matter, they will move into preemptive strikes, and this doctrine will be normalized. Furthermore, West Asia will move further towards militarization so as to ensure their own security, and they would be at the center of transactional alignments. That means they will be in order there to only exchange not to provide any type of balance to the global power. All in all, what we'll get to see, that force will become a valid instrument of legitimacy, and this will unfold into China and Taiwan, because when we are talking about Taiwan, Taiwan has already been framed by China as an internal matter. China has pitched that there is a historical incompleteness that is associated with Taiwan. Greenland takeover happens, they also use the same excuse, they will reject any external objection. And once that happens, we get to see falter lines in semiconductor supply chain. US-China might again come in direct confrontation, and Indo-Pacific militarization would be a direct result. So, this is the biggest possibility of a flashpoint for systemic war that lies in front of us. And this is not just another place I am pointing. There are multiple other propositions such as Ukraine, Russia and Europe, and the militarization that will take place. Russia-Ukraine war, already more than 3 years have passed. Still we get to see that the European stability that came in after Cold War, that has ended. How it started? It started with NATO membership, again around US. And if US goes ahead with the Greenland, it not only weakens NATO, it leaves it dead. Furthermore, it encourages Russian pressure tactics, which they have already been using. Furthermore, when we are talking about UK, it is already under multi-domain stress, especially as a member of NATO, as a close ally to US. Arctic routes are in difficult position, North Atlantic security is in a questionable state, and Baltic instability is highest of the time. Recently, there has been acquisition of cable cutting in Baltic Sea, and it has pointed fingers towards Russia. That means we also get to see that there are elements of creating instability, be it any other country, and that shows us that Europe has shifted away from deterrence. It has moved to permanent preparedness because they have nobody to trust. Not even US, not even NATO, they are on their own. And diplomacy will be only based on defense industrial mobilization. So Europe has entered a long-term security crisis mode where they are not in an appropriate position to protect themselves, to launch a war, to do anything at all, because they are in a questionable state from both sides. US on the other side and Russia on the other side. And as a result, what we are seeing? We are seeing in front of us the collapse of the liberal international order, where we talk about when UN charters, the maximum agencies that US has pulled out of, or the 66 agencies, are the UN based. That means UN charter principles which were made after the World War II, they are hollowed out. If we talk about territorial integrity, non-use of force, all gone out of the window. International law has become a choice if the country wants to follow or not. That means it has become selective and it is instrumental. That means international law will be used to the advantage as a prop in here. And this also marks, if you look into it clearly, that this is emergence of neo-imperial order. Just like imperial order that we got to see, that there are certain spheres of influence, for example US, for example Russia. There are buffer zones, for example Europe between US and Russia. When we are talking about West Asia and Europe, there are buffer zones, and then there are militarized border. Multilateralism has gone out of the window. It is not even about unilateralism or minilateralism anymore. It is about bilateral coercion. It is about countries just looking out for their interest. And US is setting such an example which will be difficult to go away from. And this is why we get to see a systemic transition in front of us from a legitimacy-based, norm-based order to a power-based order. And this is what will show you certain similarities in front of us, especially when the situation of World War I was emerging. If you talk about that very time, there was certain overconfidence in escalation control, which again you can see from the end of US, Russia, China. Alliances were entangled and there were strategic miscalculations which are present as of now as well. However, the only difference which does not make the situation any less severe, that as of now we have nuclear weapons added to the equation and we have economic interdependence to the situation. The risk, the stake, the lives are higher here, not any lesser, but what we see in front of us is a multi-front crisis converging, and any trigger at any point, most likely it seems at the US-Greenland end, is going to set in a chain reaction which we will not be able to control. And this is what lies in the world wars that we have seen and the situation that is right in front of us as of now. So the question rises again, is World War III going to happen? So if we talk about World War III, yes, World War III is a little unlikely as a single declaration based war. But you might be able to see in a different form where we have multiple regional conflicts, escalation can happen at any given point, and proxy wars where Iran protests, Israel has a lot and that stake. And that is why this whole situation boils down to Greenland, because this is like a Pandora box, because what happens after this cannot be stopped, decided or selected based on any particular country's choices. Now, what are your thoughts on this? My question to you, can you let me know in the comment section that what do you think would be India's role across this situation? What are the consequences that India can face? Let me know in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.